Hello and welcome to the SCOUTCAST. It's been a great week for those with Jack Grealish, but less so for those without. Meanwhile, we have a former winner with us today, and it's a day of celebrations. At last, the SCOUTCAST has picked a differential who not only played, but actually turned up and got on the pitch, this is a momentous day. Anyway, my name is Joe.
My name's Sam.
Hi, I'm Ben.
Welcome everyone. Sam, what's coming up in the show?
So Ben is here to tell us what it's like to be an FPL winner. We can book G with that, hey Joe. Then we're going to have a look at the coming game week and a nice run of fixtures coming up now for West Ham and Chelsea. We're going to think about Spurs and their nice game that they've got in game week 8 against West Brom. But after that, the fixture shift for Spurs is a little bit extreme to say the least. And we'll have a look at some questions around those Tottenham assets that we all know, and in my case, love dearly. We've got the next 4 fixtures for them to frisk. Ben's going to be picking out our differential for this week, and we'll reveal our transfers and our captaincy plans. We're also going to look back at game week 7 and have a look through the community's roughest and smoothest game weeks.
Rightio. Well, let's start having a look back very briefly, and well, there's a reason why I'm going to say briefly, because you'll see with my score while we'll briefly look at it. But Ben, you've come out on top this week, as fitting of a former champion, with 55 points. So pretty good week. For the benefit of those listening on the podcast, you've got Martinez Reguilon. Is that how I pronounce it, Sam? Reguilon? The guy from Spurs.
I've been calling him Reggie.
Reggie from Spurs, Kufau, Chilwell, and then in a 3-5-2 you've got Son, captain, Barnes, Bowen, Grealish, Sterling, Werner and Kane. So, pretty good week. I mean, in the average score was 50. I got nowhere near that. So, you're happy with that, 55?
Yeah, Barnes sort of just ticked it over the edge into being happy with those 8 points. It was sort of just a bit below average and then went just a bit above. So you kind of have to be happy if you're just above. I wildcarded a few weeks ago and I've had 3 really small green arrows since. So I'm still trying to work out if it's a successful wildcard or not. I mean, they are green arrows, but they're just very small ones. So it's ticking long. But I've kind of gone big on Tottenham. So a bigger Tottenham win would have been ideal for me. But Grealish was kind of the big one this week. It's sort of him and Zuma are the owners and the non-owners over who did well and who didn't really.
Yeah, and it's looking promising for game week 8. Spurs have another good fixture on paper. So let's see. There surely there's going to be some hauls. But also, as we're going to be talking about later with Chelsea and West Ham, it's interesting to see that you, as befitting perhaps a former champion, you're all set up already. So lots of people trying to look to see which Chelsea and West Ham assets to get in, and you're already there, already ahead of the curve, which I guess is what FPL is all about if you want to win it. Sam, you're next. Let's have a look here. You've got 50 points. So for the benefit of those listening on the podcast, we've got Martinez, Alexander-Arnold, Walker-Peters, Dallas, Salah, Son, Fernandes, Soucek, Kane, captain, Watkins and Calvert-Lewin, and just like me, you got Lamptey on the bench as well.
I know, what a disaster.
But pretty good, pretty. You know, that's an average score, so it's pretty good. You must be okay with that.
Yeah, it was an okay week, to be fair. I think, the rotating keepers is starting to bite me a little bit. I seem to get it wrong every single week. So I think probably it's coming up to the time where I need to think about just putting all my eggs in one keeper basket and not keep missing out week after week by making the wrong decisions. But, front 3 all performing. Bit lucky with both Watkins and Calvert-Lewin with the goals coming quite as late as they did. But when your front 3 returns, plus obviously Salah, can't be too mad about that.
No, pretty good. So, very quickly, let's have a look at my team. There we go. There it is. Bye. Let's go. Move. Anyway, so
come on, Joe.
So I've gone sort of casual, and that some people think that means don't make any moves. It actually just means the other thing. It just means just take some random moves on a Friday, 10 minutes before deadline. So I got 41, and but that includes a hit as well. So I've got Martinez, Justin, Robertson, and Ayling. And then Soucek, Son, Salah, Sterling, all the S's. They all know all the S's. Calvert-Lewin, Kane, captaincy, and Bamford and Lamptey on my bench. I'm trying to not spend so much on a bench this season. And I'm okay. It's mainly 1 and 2 points, but occasionally I get like Lamptey, who I did not. I thought he was going to get like an Ayling type score, 0. I thought Kane and Son were going to go run riot. Brighton are set up to take a beating basically from a team like Spurs, but wasn't to be. In the end, Spurs were a bit lucky, and Brighton with the weirdest lineup I've ever seen. Not since Steve Fozzie Foster played for them have I seen an odder lineup. Although that Steve Fozzie Foster was a great centre back, by the way. But it was a really odd lineup. Maupay. There's talk that he's been, was left out for some kind of disciplinary reasons, or rather his attitude. You pick the game against Spurs to rest your number 1 goalkeeper, Ryan.
To be fair, the understudy keeper had a really good game, I thought. And that played really well.
And the understudies were fine. And, we were really undone by, let's just call it cheating, by Kane. But that's fine, he was my captain. But he backs into Lallana, upended him, nearly broke his neck, and then somehow won a penalty from that. But he was my captain.
Clever forward play, that is.
But it was clever. That's why I captained Kane. I've seen the documentary. I've seen what Mourinho wants them to be like, and he was the right one, wasn't he? But
I think it's interesting though, isn't it? Because Brighton, I think a lot of us didn't expect them to do that well defensively, but actually the underlying stats of the Brighton defence have been really good this season. So in some ways we shouldn't be surprised, and Lamptey has been getting in all the right positions, and Spurs have not been as good at home as they have been away. All the hauls have come away, so maybe we shouldn't be so surprised.
No, I thought, Kane does alright at home, but obviously not as good as away. But yeah, Son, that's why I didn't captain him, because it's just a small sample though, isn't it? They've only played at home, was it 4 times, 3 away, or was it the other way around? But it's a small sample at the moment. But yeah, their away stats are superhuman. Son was it somewhere 17, 18, 19 points he's averaging away, and Kane's 14. Wow. This is why I got Son in. So yeah, the other part, before we move on to other teams, I must admit that I removed Jimenez for Bamford, woohoo, and I thought now's a good time for me to remove Harvey Barnes for Son. What could go wrong with that? How was I to know that Harvey Barnes would finally find the net?
But you've got some for West Brom now, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a hit I think that will be worth taking, and I've got a nice setup now. I'm probably going to remove Robertson this week. I'm feeling that bold, my lowly rank. But Robertson for some of the defenders that we are going to mention later in the show. I just wanted to mention some rough with the smooths. As usually he's out, as on holiday in Dorset, but I'm sure he's going to have to rush back before lockdown, which is tomorrow night. For the rough, Dark Side of the Loon. Now, he benched 17 points from Podence and Lamptey, so did one better than us with Lamptey benching. It's the first time he's benched them. What a time. It's a bit like me with that first time getting rid of Barnes. Brandon, he took out Barnes for Son, but he went one better. No, sorry, I took out Barnes for Son. Brandon went one better. He took out Barnes for Pulisic. Now imagine that roller coaster of emotions. You're looking forward to Pulisic playing, gets injured in the warm-up, Werner comes on, and it was would have been quite a good match for Pulisic, but not good. But the smooths, lots of smooths this week. Kamsi got Lamptey off the bench, and he was second on his bench as well, because he had the great fortune of having Saiss and Mitchell both not playing. So having a weaker bench or rotation-prone players or injured players was very much to his advantage.
Worked well.
Topping the Fantasy Football Scout Mini League is Marcus Jarman, but look at this Members Mini League. It's been in the lead is Zoo here. Is the new leader after playing their bench boost. Get this, for 97 points.
Wow.
And is up to 27th overall.
Lovely.
Ooh. So this is a bench points success there, so you don't have to worry about that for the rest of the season. It's also worth mentioning the triple captain Son in game week 5. This guy is really good at using his chips. Doesn't have to worry about them for the rest of the season because they've been a success. That's done. And some people say, yeah, but others got their chips to go. This guy's 27th in the world. This is going to be it's going to be on next season as a champion. So, speaking of champions, Ben, now you're sick to death of talking about how you won FPL. I wouldn't be. I would just go on and on about it forever. But we don't get many winners on the SCOUTCAST, so it'd be good to have a chat with you about what it's like to win. Just some of the, what our viewers and listeners can expect when they, eventually win one year.
The end of the season.
Yes. So what we've got is your career history up on the screen, and it's got that lovely, lovely 1 on 2016-17. It's got a 1. Then it was is that many noughts there? Is that about 1 million there? You're still partying clearly, and then 40 was that 420,000, then 100, just over 100,000 or so. So not too shabby going there, but because you've been in the top 500 before 2011, and of course just outside the top 10,000 in 2014. So you're no stranger to getting good finishes. Oh, I forgot, in 2010, 1,369th. So lots of strong finishes there over your career. So it's no fluke. But what I want to know is what happens when you win the prize. What was your prize? And
well,
when did you get it? What did you do with it?
It's quite strange when you win when I won, say, because it was so close. Normally you sort of expect in most things, once the final whistle's gone, either way whether you've won or not, like whatever you're involved in. When the game ends, when you've won. Whereas this was so close that the bonus points hadn't been added, and even the BPS scores, I don't think they were calculated at the end of games quite as quick as what they are now. There were more changes that happened. So it was really close, and I'm trying to calculate whether I think I've won. A mate's texting me saying, I've got you level, or I've got you losing by 1, I've got you a couple ahead. And so it was like, there was quite a big delay. And then when the bonus points finally got confirmed, it's maybe like an hour after the final whistles or something. But I'm still there. Like, the league table doesn't say that I'm in first. It still got me as second overall. And I don't know if there's going to be some assist that gets taken away, or whether there's goal that, it's not like now where you could watch all the games. I couldn't watch any of them. So it was kind of this really long, drawn out wait. And as time went on, it did look like I had won. And when they update the scores, but just not the overall positions. And so you can work out, okay, I've done it. And also there's not someone from like 20th who got 200 points and has jumped up really high. But it was still like maybe 3 or 4 hours after when the overall updated. And I was like, okay, I've definitely won now. I can actually celebrate it now. And it's also a bit strange because it's on a Sunday night as well. So it's not even like, let's have a big party. It's sort of like, I've got to go to bed soon. And
go to work in the morning.
And it's just a completely normal day at work. A few sort of like, are well done off people who know about it, and others don't even know what the game was, sort of thing. So
I first met you a few months after. It was about a couple of months after you won. And obviously that was all part of the sort of roller coaster of winning it, where you're on the media a lot and you're talking to people and you're meeting people at Fantasy Football Scan, these types of things. But you get a prize as well. What is it? It's like a VIP trip to
so there's a couple of VIP tickets where you can choose what game you go to. And it also includes 2 nights accommodation and travel. So it's obviously worth going, from my point of view, to Everton away games rather than stay in a hotel sort of 20 minutes from where I live for 2 nights. And so I went to Arsenal away, which was really good in terms of stadium. The seats were in a box, so it's really good and all that. But we did get hammered that game. I think it was
as in
4-1.
drunk, or you just got really beaten?
Both. So I think we got a goal luckily, but I think it was after we were already 4-0 down. So that took the edge off, but it was a really nice hotel and stuff, and so it was first class travel on the train, so it was a good trip anyway. And then the Newcastle game we won 1-0. Mr. Rooney scored. And so it was a terrible game, but we won 1-0, so we didn't care. And the strange thing about that was I was sat just a few seats down from our £25 million signing, Davy Klassen. So it kind of shows how good his season was going, that by December he was up in the stands watching the game with me, as opposed to
really?
on the field.
Were you saying
or
it's
even
good,
on the
it's
bench?
Good, this lot.
So,
this team could really do with an attacking midfielder. There's only like 11 on the pitch.
So yeah, but again, great seats because they're VIP tickets. So yeah, it was really good. And other prizes were like a PlayStation, a tag watch, and then a few sort of goodies like a bag, infamous stress ball, which is
and a mug,
and worn out, the mug.
Yeah. What I find interesting, because some people say mock the prize because it feels so amazing to win FPL. There's so many millions of managers doing it, and like in the Sky game, you win tens of thousands of pounds and all the other formats. But from what you've just described there, I kind of like what you've just described, even though cost wise, it's not winning tens of thousands of pounds, but to feel really special like that, to go to a match like that, to be in a box like that and be treated like a VIP, to meet Premier League footballers as well. I kind of like that. I think that's an important part of the prize, apart from the because looking at your career history, obviously it means something. It's not like a fluke to win it. It's not like first time. I remember one winner. I can't remember which year it was, and I interviewed him, and it was his first season, and he didn't have any sort of concept of what he'd done, what he'd achieved. First season, just won it. And
I don't know if that was the Leicester season.
Yeah, it was.
I heard that he played it once and then didn't play again.
Yeah, and then he never played it again.
That was just him done.
It wasn't. It didn't. But obviously for you, this was 1, 2, 3. This is like 7th or 8th season doing it. So it meant something. It meant something there. What's it like now though? Because I saw you back then, and you were probably doing the media train. But what's it like now? Am I me and Sam like quite rare talking to you about it, or do people still stop you in the streets or whatever?
Not really. It's I've never been stopped in the streets, but it's sort of it tends to be more of a mates thing. That if we're around new people or something, or it's a friend of a friend, then they'll kind of introduce me as someone who won FPL before, and it kind of generally goes by they think it's the mini league that we're in, as opposed to the overall sort of thing. So it's kind of continued from that, but I don't really, other than people who already know because they're involved in FPL, then I don't really kind of push it on people elsewhere.
Do you put it on your CV? I don't know if you've gone for any jobs since.
No.
I would.
Oh, you should.
I would. I definitely would. I've not applied for any jobs since winning, but I remember even just someone saying that I should do it, but I was going to do it anyway. And I think as time's gone on, I've almost thought it would be a bigger advantage, not because it shows certain skills that you could say that you won the game, but that if the person interviewing me was a big FPL player, it's hard that they just wouldn't take a liking, and just kind of the interview would just move on to FPL. And then we'd just sort of bond over that, and then it would be like, right, the job's in the pocket now, really.
Yeah, you just end up being their boss. I know.
I'd give you the job.
I know Simon March has done that. I believe he's put it on his CV, but he's also done research around the whole concept of playing games. Before we move on to, I think Sam's got a couple of questions as well. But I just wanted to say, now in your next season, I'm always interested about the next season. The motivation. So how did you, once you've won it, how do you get yourself motivated to play it again?
I guess just sort of it becomes like part of who you are, the person that everyone knows you as. So there wasn't any doubt over playing it again, and just I was kind of looking forward to it and hoping that almost maybe there was a bit of like, I think I've got this figured out a little bit now. Ooh. And so like I might get a really just consistently high score from now on, but that didn't quite happen.
Yeah, that kind of goes into one of the questions I had, which was, if you've won the entire game, does that change the way that you play tactically the years that follow? Does it make you think, I'll just play it as I did in the season where I won it, or does it actually make you think, well, maybe there were things I could learn still from that I would do differently?
I think the main thing that changed really is I didn't intentionally change how I played, but because I went from just the game being really small to where I basically had 1 or 2 mini leagues that I cared about. And in amongst those, there was one rival I had that I mainly wanted to beat. And that was sort of it. And so you play the game, and as long as I'm above him or in top of mini league, then I'm doing well. Whereas the season after winning game week 1, I was suddenly looking at my overall rank, and it had gone from being first over the whole summer and sort of everyone saying, "Oh, the winner."
Yeah.
And then after one game week, I was over 2 million. And just suddenly I felt a pressure straight away as like everybody thinks I should be this like player. And, there's all these pre-season interviews on what are the tips and all this. And then if I'm 2 millionth, like, why am I giving out any tips sort of thing? But it was only after 1 week, but I felt the pressure of it kind of straight away. And I ended up wildcarding 2 weeks in, which is something that I've never done before anywhere near that early. And just it kind of went downhill.
I was just thinking about the pressure because you can think of it in two ways. The pressure's on you. You're a champion, so you feel, I should be doing well every year. But at the same time, the pressure's sort of off because no matter where you finish, you can always say, "Yeah, but I've won it." that's the ultimate comeback.
I think it was just more the amount of people. I remember a few game weeks in, and someone sending me this Reddit thread where there were just all these people discussing my game week so far and all the decisions that I'd made. Yeah. And it was just kind of that change from it just used to be a little game that I played with mates and that was it, to just like there's these people who have never even met or seen and they're all commenting on what I'm doing, and it just sort of like being watched a bit definitely affected my decision making and just sort of made me feel a little more rushed to like try and get up the ranks quicker, which generally doesn't work. You've kind of just got to take your time and pick the better long-term picks rather than try and perfect it each week.
I guess going on from that then, because nobody's ever won it twice. So, is it something that's on your radar? Does that pop into your head at the start of every season? Like, I could be the first one to make it a brace?
It does kind of a little bit in terms of obviously that would be the ultimate achievement. But then it's obviously extremely difficult. I mean, last season I was doing quite well, sort of about a third of the way into the season. I was around 20,000, which is kind of from winning before. That's kind of tracking a little bit onto first. Although I'm in amongst maybe 50,000 other people who can still win it. It's not like I'm, close to winning at that stage. But my season sort of fell off then. But it would be extremely difficult to. But maybe I'm playing the game another 30, 40 years or something. So I'll be giving myself as big a chance as what I can to do it anyway.
Sam,
any more questions before we move on? Or
no, I think that was it.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting looking at your team. No Liverpool, that's through choice, right? Isn't it? And noticeably, since you won it, that's when Liverpool have kind of, I guess, got better.
That was my last chance.
Yeah, and I wonder whether actually the not owning Liverpool thing, given how well Salah and Trent and those guys have been playing over the last sort of 4 years, maybe actually that's what's held you back the last couple of years since you've won it. Maybe, I don't know.
It would be a factor, but the season after I won it, where I came millionth, was Salah's biggest total ever sort of thing. So obviously that didn't help, and if people are captaining him, then there's huge scores. But my friend who I sort of consider as my biggest rival on it, he also doesn't pick Liverpool players, and he finished just outside the top 100k that season. Okay. So although it's not like a fantastic rank or something, but he would have made mistakes along the way. It's not like he played the perfect season still. So there still was an opportunity to get a pretty respectable rank. So I don't kind of put it completely down to that. Because it was also my lowest points total, total points total. So Salah doesn't really affect me getting less points, other than maybe he takes clean sheets off my defenders. But in terms of me picking players who get points, I still didn't do that very well throughout the season to get such a low total.
I wonder if this season might be, although Salah's done well this season. So, for example, I've had double Liverpool defence for a lot of this season, not so anymore. But it's been a hindrance, really, because that money could have been spent elsewhere better. For example, some of the players that you've got at the moment. Also with Salah as well, there's been much better captaincy options in Son and Kane. And if you've got Salah, you're tempted to captain him, and you would perhaps miss out on some of those other potentially lucrative offers players. But also when City start kicking in, and perhaps when Manchester United do as well. So who knows? This could be, like going back to Sam's question, this could be the year where we get a double winner.
There's not so much that, but in terms of having a good season, I think this is my best chance from the amount of other options that there are. Then there's plenty of options, and because for the last few seasons there hasn't been as many, and so I've actually been picking Kane quite a lot. And
nothing wrong with that, Ben.
When you've got him, you generally captain him.
Yeah.
And he's let me down so many times over the last few seasons that even when he dropped down to 10.5, I wasn't really tempted at the start of the season. But then it took a few game weeks and I was like, oh, actually, this is what I wanted the last few seasons, but it didn't happen like this. So I've ended up with him in.
Well, that's a beautiful segue into the next topic, which is Sam's team, Spurs.
It's my favourite thing to talk about this.
Yes,
Joe.
yes. So, what's this all about? And we've got some. I think we did have lots of community questions, but they're all basically saying the same thing. So I just put the one in who just phrased it best.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Spurs, obviously, and what to do in game week 9 with Spurs. Obviously, we talked earlier about how Spurs have got a really lovely fixture in game week 8 away at West Brom, and that's where they've been on form. But from game week 9, that lovely sea of blue that we see turns a very, very nasty shade of red with some really, really difficult fixtures. And it's time for us as FPL managers to kind of ponder on Son and Kane. Do we sell them? Do we sell both? Do we keep them or do we keep them both? There was, as Joe said, loads of community questions about this, but kind of the one that really sums it up was from FPL Blinder, who says, with the game week 9 fixture term for Spurs, do we hold on to Kane, Son, neither? Especially for those with a lot of value tied up in those two players. Ben, you just segued me in nicely by talking about Kane. What are you going to do? Are you going to hold throughout this nasty fixtures or?
No. My priority is to get KDB alongside Sterling, and Kane is just the money for that, really. I think looking at the fixtures, although I still think the form that Kane's in, he still could do very well over those games. I'm never going to captain him. I think they play Palace away in maybe like 5 weeks or something, and that's the only one. Even Palace away, it's not really like the need to jump on that fixture or anything. So I'm not going to captain him for quite a long time. So 10.7 or something, I think I can get out of him. It just feels like that money and a little bit more is KDB, and surely KDB gets more points over that sort of same run.
And your own Son as well, right? So you're going to hold him or?
He's a little bit more preferable with him being a midfielder and sort of the extra points available there, and the fact that he's cheaper. But at the same time, he's like price wise, he's a little sideways move to Rashford as an option. So I think Kane's the priority to lose, but Son will just kind of be there. And then I've also got Reggie in defence, who's tying up 5.5 million, and I don't really see many Spurs clean sheets. He's already drawn this fixture, good run of fixtures. He's relying on his assists for the points, so he's also someone who's got to go. I've got a little bit of a defensive crisis there with Saiss and Mitchell also not playing, so I think he's out the door, kind of along with Kane as the sort of two priorities.
Joe, do you tend to agree? Because you're doubled up too. They're both staying. They're both going.
Both could go. I might keep Kane though. Basically, I've got Son in fairly recently, with an eye on these two fixtures. That was the Brighton one and the West Brom. And also, as Ben said, he is a great move to Rashford. But he's also, I already have Sterling. So I want to get KDB in, but the pressure's sort of off me having Sterling. And what Ben was saying is right. I'm not going to captain Kane or Son over this period. We've got the fixtures up on the screen. After West Brom, they've got City, Chelsea, Arsenal, that Palace fixture, then Liverpool, Leicester, Wolves. And then it doesn't get good until game week 16, I think it is, with Fulham. So that's when I want to go back there. Yeah, for me, I don't know. It's going to be depends on the how much money's left. At the moment, Son for Rashford or KDB. And I'm looking to move Robertson out. I'm looking to downgrade, and then so ends my Liverpool defensive cover completely, and move him to somewhere like one of the players we're going to be mentioning in the next bit, because it frees up $1 million or $2 million. That's going to be my Son to KDB. I quite like to keep Kane, but if Kane has to go, he has to go. But if I have to keep one, I think I'd like keep Kane, because it's penalties. In amongst that, we've got Arsenal as well. Spurs against Arsenal is hard to call on paper, but there's usually some goals there, and Kane does score. I mean, as you know, he scores a hell of a lot against Arsenal.
He does.
So,
yeah, and Leicester, who we've got in this run of fixtures as well.
Exactly.
Kane does have a goal against Leicester too. So, yeah, I think for me, it's interesting because this season so far, it's not really been about the fixtures at all. There's just been form coming from absolutely nowhere. From, you just look at West Ham, who we're going to talk about in a bit, but their form has been ridiculous through a really tough period of fixtures. And Spurs have had a nice start to the season, but there's been some teams they've played in there that have been on good form, like West Ham, like Everton, at the beginning. So, but the form has held up, and points have been scored throughout that period. And for me, there's a difficult period of fixtures there for Spurs, particularly Man City, Chelsea, Arsenal. There's no denying that that's a really tough run of 3 fixtures, and maybe the double up is too much. But I certainly think there's scope for holding one of those guys, because Spurs are up there and thereabouts, and they won't want to lose that traction that they've now gained. They will be continuing to play. Spurs Man City always ends up being a scoring, decent game to watch, and Spurs will want to get something out of that. Likewise with Chelsea, and of course in the London derby. So for me, I tend to agree with you, Joe. Actually, I think I'll be holding Kane throughout it. I think Son could easily be switched and become somebody else, because I do think potentially the double up is a little bit great across that period, and you probably don't want that. But you're looking at those fixtures from Crystal Palace onwards. Liverpool, that's tough, but then defensively they are not solid right now, and they probably won't be by that point, because Van Dijk still won't be there. Leicester, Wolves and Fulham, those fixtures don't look too bad for me for goals for Kane and Son. I do agree though, I wouldn't hold the Spurs defence.
No, it's quite a stark change in fixtures as well. So game week 10, Manchester United have suddenly got Southampton, West Ham away, Manchester City, but then Sheffield United and then Leeds. I mean, this is a really good run, and they're away, and Manchester United seem to be performing better away at the moment. So there's a perfect opportunity to move to someone like Rashford. And it's the same with City. Suddenly game week 10, they got Burnley and Fulham at home. It doesn't get rosier than that. But the one I'm thinking about, I do ordinarily want to keep Kane, but I am willing to get rid of him for a few fixtures. And that's because in game week 10, Leicester have Fulham, Sheffield United, Brighton, and it's a lovely little 3 run for Vardy.
Feel a party coming on.
And there's going to be a party going on. Kane to Vardy is just nice and easy, nice and simple. And then if I want to, I could go back to Kane, inevitably. But yeah, and Vardy's a really good player in that I really like to own him when he's got these fixtures. He gets points out of thin air in FPL, like he did this week. But I'm also happy to ditch him. I've got no loyalty to him. Kane is a bit of a wrench, but I'm willing to do it. But Vardy, I'm happy to ditch him, get him in, whenever. I just don't mind. But Ben, have you looked at that with the Leicester fixture swing and the temptation to get Kane to Vardy, perhaps?
Not before last night, and so I've not really had chance to consider it too much today. I was more hoping, if I want the KDB money, I need to do Kane to someone cheaper than just kind of slightly cheaper. So yeah, I don't know. It's not something I'm hoping I will want to do, because at the moment I've really got my eyes set on KDB and hopefully Man City turning up the form. I think keeping Kane as well, just sort of going back onto that, and even Son, it would have been more tempting to do for me if they had played better against Burnley and Brighton, but their performances seemed to fall off a bit in those games. They were quite slow against Burnley, and in the passing, you kind of saw how Chelsea played against them, a lot faster and a lot better. And so it's it feels like their form as a team is just kind of regressing to the mean a little bit after some great performances earlier on with goals. So it just makes it a little easier to switch from the difficult fixtures, rather than wondering, should I be getting rid of form players?
I looked at some stats for this for some of the players, and because I know Vardy's a bit of a stat buster with the expected, but I looked at expected goal involvement. I didn't strip out penalties, because to say, oh, I'm going to look at Vardy, but I'm not going to include penalties, it's just like, well, he's going to get half the story there. So in terms of expected goal involvement over the last 4 game weeks, Kane 3.56, next Fernandes with 2.43. I mean, I've done it in kind of picking out this sort of key players you might want to get in for Son and Kane when you use that money. But Vardy is just behind Fernandes at 2.35, so he's expected to have been involved in two and a bit goals over the last 4 game weeks. And then there's Sterling and De Bruyne there with 2, and then De Bruyne is only meant to have been involved in 1, expected to have been involved in 1 goal, and then Rashford's down there with 1 as well. So you can see from that don't ignore penalties with Vardy. He is a good substitute for those players, and of course having Sterling there.
Sorry, I was going to say it depends a little bit with Vardy over the way Leeds played last night, and just the way they play in general is very open.
Yeah.
And so you kind of feel that suits Vardy. That's just the loads of space. Vardy loves it. Whereas I don't know if those good fixtures will allow him the same sort of space. I mean, he does go on runs of form where he can kind of score against anyone, good or bad, but I'm not sure they're as suited to Vardy's style as what the Leeds game looked, where he was on fire.
And Brighton could be. And it depends
and
with
he's
Brighton.
also very He's also very dependent upon who plays alongside him in that Leicester team. Like, you know, when Maddison hasn't been playing, Vardy doesn't look half the player as when Maddison's on the pitch. Or actually last night it was Harvey Barnes, who was fantastic. But he needs somebody else to be playing well in order for him to kind of set that Vardy party going again. It feels like he needs that connective player that brings the play from defence right the way through and up to him. He was quite isolated in those early fixtures, and it goes back to what you just said about penalties, Joe, in that if he didn't have those penalties in those early games, his expected goals would be so much lower. If you did strip them out and looked at it just without the penalties, it's a lot lower, and in part that's to do with the way that Leicester were set up and the people that they were missing in the early part of the season. And I think last night we started to see the beginnings of Leicester just looking a little bit more free-flowing again. And you might be right, Ben, it might be just because it was Leeds that they were playing against. So I'm kind of intrigued to see what happens to Leicester in game week 8 before I make any firm decisions about Vardy and whether he's worth an investment.
Yeah, I think one of the things from last night in Vardy's favour was that under when he came on. Not only the assist that he got, which was pretty unselfish to give Vardy the goal when he was kind of in, but also another pass that he did soon after that put Vardy through on goal. And he's possibly a really creative, really good passer. And if you're good at through balls, then Vardy's just there waiting for them. So if that's one of this under's strengths, then he's going to help Vardy get the goals tally.
Some of the other players from other teams that we could be interested in to replace with Spurs, but also we could be interested in from the next game week, the game week we're here to talk about, really game week 8. So yeah, what are the 2 teams that we're talking about here, Ben? I'll get you to sort of introduce this bit.
So there's West Ham and Chelsea. Chelsea, I suppose, is sort of partly fixtures, but also partly just their form and them starting to click. And then West Ham, their fixtures, but also given how well they've played this season, which has been surprisingly well, given certain things that happened in pre-season and just how they were last season. Now they've got a really good run of fixtures extending for quite a long time. So certain players that might be looking at in the West Ham team. So for myself personally, I got Koufal on the wild card because I didn't need a defender straight away on that. So I kind of bought him thinking ahead to this run. He's already got a couple of assists, which have been on my bench so far, but I'm hoping he can kind of continue that creative form. He seems to have a little bit of creativity, although not as good a crosser or as many crosses as Cresswell on the other side, who is also an option looking good for this run of games. I think at 5-1 compared to 4.5, I'm not sure Cresswell's worth the extra money, but if you're downgrading from a Liverpool defender, say, then you're probably not that bothered about the money because you're already freeing up loads and loads. And Cresswell, you'd have to say, will probably get more points than Koufal over the next sort of 8 to 10 games that they're good runners. So it's maybe a tough call between those, and it just depends if you want the money freed up. I don't know if either of you two.
It's interesting because this is one of the things I've been looking at, because I think my defence needs a bit of a shake up. They're just not doing what I want them to be doing, particularly, as you say, the Liverpool. I have Trent, and he's definitely not the Trent that we knew and loved last season. So I've been looking very carefully at Koufal and at Cresswell and trying to work out which of them I think is the right option, because I think owning West Ham is the right option. It's just which way in. And actually, when you look at the ICT index, Cresswell outscores Koufal massively. And if you run a comparison in the members area, I was really surprised at how much better Cresswell appears than Koufal does. So he registers 82% versus the 18 for Koufal. He beats him on XA, XI, touches, passes received, dribbles, take-ons, retention. Pretty much every area, Cresswell knocks him out of the park. But yeah, there's something about Koufal that I really like. The fact that he turned up at the club, went straight into the team, as you say, has already got those 2 assists against difficult. They were hard, playing one against Spurs. They were difficult fixtures. He's turned out, got attacking returns. Heat maps do look good. So I think if you've got the budget to spare, like I'll have from downgrading Trent, Cresswell's a bit of a no-brainer over him. But if the budget's a little bit more tight and you're thinking about, I need an extra, 0.8, 0.7, 0.6, whatever it is, here or there to upgrade to maybe KDB through the middle, then Koufal looks a great option.
Yeah, I think one of the worrying things for me, kind of having him and just the way football works almost, is that West Ham can look really good, as Villa did earlier in the season, and then you get a few fixtures where you're like, oh, okay, here maybe the points good, here's the clean sheets, everyone gets Martinez in goal for Villa, and it just kind of doesn't work that calculated that necessarily these fixtures mean you're going to get loads of clean sheets out of them. So I am a little worried, and that's where I felt a little safer just going for the less amount of money that I didn't have quite as much in. But even Koufal, now I've got him in, then I'm sort of happy. But I am just a little worried that they're not going to be as good defensively as what I'm sort of hoping, given the fixtures.
I think what you did there was a shrewd move with the wild card. It's something I didn't do this year, but I did do last year with Sionju when he was 4.5 at Leicester. Leicester had diabolical games when I wildcarded for about 4 or 5 weeks, and then suddenly they were much better again, and I had Sionju in place, and you've done that with Koufal, so I think that was a good move to do. I'm looking between West Ham and Chelsea. I'm thinking of getting rid of Robertson, and which might seem a bit odd, but I just think the Liverpool defence is not performing as I would. I would like to free up some more money. I would like to beef up my defence a bit. There are lots of good options, and at the moment they're performing better than Robertson. That would be a bit of a wrench. So I'm looking at Cresswell or Chilwell. Basically anyone with well in their name I'm after.
Can only go well.
But yeah, a well for the Wells and Cresswell. So yeah, last 4 game weeks, Cresswell's had 7 corners and created 7 chances. So from them. So that's the sort of boring stats that make me like Cresswell. If West Ham have good fixtures and we think they're going to get some goals, even without Antonio, Cresswell's chances are going to be the guy that gets assists. So if he's getting a clean sheet, an assist, and maybe a bonus or 2, then we're looking at maybe a couple of double-digit hauls over that next. I mean, Fulham, Sheffield United, Villa, then Manchester United, but then Leeds. I mean, surely there looks like at least 2 or 3 clean sheets there, and there could be a couple of double-digit hauls.
I don't know if Cresswell might actually be better with Haller in rather than Antonio, given the extra height. If he's kind of doing well from corners and set pieces, then he's probably got more threat than what Antonio does, albeit Antonio's the better overall player. But I'm not sure at the moment if there's any news as to how long Antonio's out for.
But
Confirmed.
I was going to say, as much as I do love Cresswell, and I have in previous seasons on the Scoutcast gone on about Cresswell, I've never actually got him in, so it would be amazing if I did this time. But at the same time, his brother, the Well brother, Chilwell, is doing much better, and at 5.9, and it looks like he's going to stay 5.9 for the rest of this week. Robertson to Chilwell, he's got a great fixture coming up, Sheffield United. Now on the captaincy video today we did with David, we were highlighting Sheffield United's weakness on the right. They concede twice as many chances on the right as the left. That favours opponents that play on the left, i.e. Chilwell. Also they concede a hell of a lot of headed goal attempts. So that bodes well for Zuma as well. So for this particular fixture, Zuma or Chilwell look really good. But with Newcastle next, then Tottenham, but then Leeds and then Everton, there's not bad for the prospects of assists from Chilwell. I like the run there. I like the run of games. Looking at the last 4 game weeks, Chilwell's got a bit of everything really. So he's had a couple of shots inside the box, 9 chances created. He's taken 15 corners. So he's completely trouncing Cresswell on those kinds of stats, and he's delivered 25 crosses. I mean, it's been the Chilwell show a lot. Sheffield United, I think it was Cancelo last week, really profited in terms of creating chances against Sheffield United, which you saw the weakness on their right there. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be between one of those two. I think I'm going to make a transfer this week, free up $1 million or so. Not sure what I'm going to do with that, but I think it just Cresswell or Chilwell. Oh, don't know. Either of you two got any opinions? Which one of those two? If money's no object,
I'd go Chilwell. But I think for 5.9 that's getting quite expensive now, where you need more than just the clean sheets. Whereas Zuma's offering the goals. But if it's just going to be clean sheets, then you'd rather pay the 5.2 for Zuma. I think Chilwell has kind of always been seen as sort of an attacking defender, but looking at his kind of output from previous seasons, it's not that great compared to other fullbacks. But I don't know whether this is the season where he kind of steps it up, and maybe there's more clean sheets there at Chelsea and that for him to benefit from. But he at the moment he's not had that kind of like 8 assists kind of season in him. Maybe this is the one where he steps up. But I think if you're getting towards the kind of 6 million mark, when there's cheaper defenders, you do need that attacking output rather than just the clean sheets to rely on.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I very, very nearly bought in Zuma last week for game week 7, and that would have been the right thing to do in the end. But I kind of denied for quite a while, because the reality is, having owned Shay Adams over Danny Ings for a while, I always felt like it was a bit of a compromise too much. And I sort of had that same feeling with Zuma. I felt like I'd always spend that time wishing that I'd invested in Chilwell instead. I don't know what it is about Chilwell. I just feel like there's more consistency maybe in his performances. Like Zuma has the tendency to just go off the boil and then come back. And yes, he's got goals in him, as we saw in game week 7. But I think for me, of the two of them, Chilwell looks great and he's on really good form. Since he's arrived, 3 clean sheets, 2 assists, a goal. He's 5th for defenders in the creativity stats. So he's up there doing all the right things. I think he's the best pick of them all.
Yeah.
I guess the hope is that he's kind of just do the same as Alonso going forward, do that as much, but you're better defensively, as opposed to just playing the role differently.
And they've got Mendy in
do
goal.
the Alonso stuff as well.
I think now Mendy's in goal. It's made a massive difference, because the clean sheet is a bit more assured than it was when Kepa was there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a really good option, I think. And I don't really know, nice to get a bit more money, but I don't know kind of what I want to do with that next. And then we have an international break. So the timing is sort of right for Chilwell for me, in my setup. Because I'll have $1 million to play with. That means I can possibly do Son to Rashford. I could possibly move Kane to Vardy. It doesn't matter. And also the game week after the international break, you're never too sure what's going to go on, who's going to get injured. Nice to go with 2 free transfers into that, but Robertson against City I'm not keen on. and I'm just in a huff with Liverpool defence.
You and me both, Joe.
Yeah, just in a huff with them. It's in. I always, each Scoutcast, I draw some comparisons with the Sky format because I tend to do better in that for some reason than in FPL recently. And I think one of the factors is I make those types of bold decisions, like get rid of all your Liverpool defenders, that type of thing.
The thing is with the
and I'm going to do exactly the same thing in that. Liverpool defender out for Chelsea.
Last year, when Liverpool weren't keeping the clean sheets at the beginning of the season, the likes of Trent and Robertson, they were getting attacking returns. And so they were worth the investment because they had the massive upside of the attacking returns. Now, for me, as a Trent owner at 7.4, I'm looking around my team thinking, well, there's plenty of midfielders that are outperforming you in the lower price bracket than that, who are getting attacking returns. So why would I invest it in you when you're not getting any clean sheets? I might as well take the money out, invest it in a defender who's going to save me over $1 million if I go with Chilwell, and a hell of a lot more than that if I go with Cresswell or Kufel. And I can redistribute that money. That gives me the money to get KDB. It gives me the money to upgrade one of my other strikers if I want to. It just puts you in a better position overall. And there will come a point, I'm sure, where we'll all want our Liverpool defenders back again. But hopefully that falls during the second wild card, and we can worry about that then.
I mean, one of the reasons I've got Sterling in is because I think when the fixtures turn in City's favour in game week 10, when they play Burnley and Fulham in quick succession, the pressure is on to get City attack for that. And having Sterling already, I've got one of the two nailed on guys, KDB and Sterling. I would quite like both, but I wouldn't go into that match going, I've got to have KDB, because Sterling is a great player and is nailed on, and is attacking. And it's a real kind of stats v eye test with him. And I look at Sterling playing, and I think, wow, you're really. I think he's really sharp and on form, but the stats don't show it. It just says missed chance or not enough chances. But if you watch the match, he looks really on it, and the other players aren't really passing to him. There was a couple of times where he just looks like he was ready to go, but it wasn't going to shoot. So I'm hoping with KDB back now, and also with Jesus, who is on the subs bench in Europe tonight. With him back, I think we might see a bit more of the old City, and but definitely. I think I think within the community, game week 10, if you haven't got City attack, be prepared for some massive lobbying from people who have.
Hide behind the sofa.
Yeah, hide behind the sofa time. Let's move on to the next four fixtures. Which we've alluded to some of these teams as well. So for this section, we're going to look at players targeted over the next 4 game weeks. Now, Fantasy Football Scouts partner with Football Index, so there may also be players to look at buying through Football Index. That's where you can buy and sell shares in players and using fantasy football knowledge to make a profit. So looking at the fixtures there, Crystal Palace still at the top. I'm still not interested in Crystal Palace. Not being a Brighton, it's just being a Brighton fan, but I could get Zaha in, but I don't know which Zaha is going to turn up, the 15-point Zaha or the nothing Zaha. Everton now, Ben, this is good because your team are doing, taking a slight dip, but that's mainly through injuries and suspensions. But hopefully they're all back for game week 9, Fulham, and then Leeds, and then Burnley. So Ben, are you looking forward to that as an Everton fan?
Yeah, well, I made the late decision to take Rodriguez out. It was a lot more rushed than what I'd hoped. I was all set to bank a transfer, and then I sort of went him to Bowen as getting on the West Ham a week earlier. I'm not sure Bowen was the right one to go for, but I would like Rodriguez back in. I don't know whether he's going to be fit for Man U, the sort of talk that he would be, but he's one of those players that I don't know if when he's got an injury, it just kind of lingers on a little bit, and it always looks like he's going to be back for the next game, and then it's one more week sort of thing. But I think I can miss him for the Man U game, and then for those fixtures, I would definitely like Rodriguez. Yeah. And I'm also eyeing up Richarlison as one of the ones that Kane would drop down to. Yeah. I had him in for his red card. I wild carded him in that week. And I still fancy him over Calvert-Lewin in the longer term, or even not he doesn't necessarily have to beat Calvert-Lewin's points total, but I think from now to the end of the season, I think he'll get more points because he's got the assists, maybe not quite as many goals, but he's definitely got a lot more assist potential than what Calvert-Lewin does.
It's going to be a really good differential for you as well, because a lot of people with Calvert-Lewin, they're not going to think Richarlison. Meanwhile, Richarlison's on penalties, and they've got Fulham, Leeds and Burnley coming up. So
for how much we've struggled in the last couple of games, it kind of shows how key he is to our creativity. Richarlison and Rodriguez are kind of the two that I'm eyeing up.
Looking at the other end of that, the next 4 fixtures, this is one of the reasons why I hopped off Jimenez early. Wolves, absolutely diabolical. They've got Leicester, Southampton's okay, and then Arsenal, Liverpool, Fulham right at the bottom, as you'd expect. But then Tottenham, we've already talked about their fixture change there. But Liverpool's fixtures don't look great. City, Leicester, Brighton and Wolves. The Brighton away game looks good for Salah and Mane, but other than that, I'm not like woo about that one.
It's interesting because I actually think that there's a really good opportunity to own a cheaper Liverpool asset here in Diego Jota.
Okay.
So for me, he's somebody that I'm looking at. I think he's looked really impressive every time he's come on. He scored twice so far tonight in the Champions League. He's on a brace for them this evening. Interestingly, assisted by Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's not doing that for me in the league. But so I think for me, Jota looks like a really interesting option. Now, obviously, it's tough with Liverpool because, with the exception of Ben, most people are probably on Salah or Mane in one way or another, and it's very difficult to own both. But I think the way that Liverpool have to set up right now is to attack, because defensively that is where they are struggling, and the best way to kind of keep winning is to keep scoring goals. And Jota is at the pinnacle of all the good stuff that's going on with Liverpool right now. He turns up every match, he's got that real fire in his belly, and he's performing really, really well. So I think we're getting to a stage where I'll be surprised not to see Klopp give him a start in the league. And I think if he gets a start in the league, he will turn it on to kind of prove a point, as he's doing in the Champions League with his start tonight. So he's one, even with the Liverpool fixtures not looking hugely great, they will need to win those games if they're going to stay at the top of the league. And therefore, the only way they're going to do that is to score a number of goals. And Jota, at his price point, is a really nice way into that Liverpool attack. I
think for many, he's sort of in that Foden price point. He's like,
yes,
he might not start, he probably won't start, but he could score anything up to 2 goals in the last 20 minutes when he comes on. He's the kind of player you don't mind being benched because you know they can do some damage in the second half. I think those wild carding maybe. And minded to step off Liverpool's expensive assets. I think that's a good point, actually, and I think he'll be very overlooked.
He must be due some starts as well, because Firmino just sort of never scores, and it sort of seems to be whenever he does, he gets hailed as the most underrated player in the world and stuff. But Jota's come in sort of flying, so I'd have thought surely Klopp gives him a start, and if he does well, then I think he'll just keep his place.
Ben, just before we get to your differential to get our fine run going, I just want to say that with the Football Index, they've got a 7-day £500 money back guarantee. All links in for that in the description below, and we'll do that on the podcast version as well. It's for 18 plus only. Please gamble responsibly, and you can check out begambleaware.org, and there's a link for that as well in the description for the video and the podcast. So we've got a fine run of 1 going so far on our differential successes, thanks to Karim last week with Cancelo. Ben, who is your differential to pick for the next 4 game weeks or so?
I've decided that I'm gonna double down on the Bowen pick. Ooh. He's only 2.2% owned. So although I wasn't overly happy about getting him in, now that he's in, then I think I'm gonna back him. And I think starting with this Fulham home game, I think he's maybe someone who could benefit more from Haller playing up front, in that he's more likely, rather than running behind, he's going to have to hold it up and hopefully bring Bowen into play and kind of closer to shooting positions. And also he's more of a target in the box for when Bowen's crossing. So I'm going to sort of back this pick that I wasn't planning on doing and double down on Bowen.
Well, you know I'm keen on him because I accidentally sent you my. I thought you were Luke for a minute on Twitter, and I accidentally sent you my Sky team for the video we just recorded there, and that was me telling Luke, "Oh, I've just got Bowen in for Antonio." So yeah, I'm very keen on him as well. So I second that. I mean, looking at the fixtures there, you can see the fixtures still up. West Ham, Fulham, Sheffield United, Villa, Manchester United next 4. Plenty of potential for returns there. Bowen looked great last season, and he's working well. I think until we know what's going on with Antonio, he could arguably be the best West Ham option. I tentatively say. I know there's some interesting Fornals, but yeah, I agree. Sam, you up for Bowen?
I could be persuaded into Bowen. I think my preference would be to go Fornals, just because the returns are already there for Fornals. He's already kind of performing at that level, I guess. I also think Souček is still a good option. I know that he hasn't yet returned in the way that we all hoped he would at his price point, but the XG and the XA and stuff, they are there for Souček. So hopefully there will be some returns for his owners, myself included, in the next couple of weeks. But I could definitely be persuaded into Bowen. I think West Ham, the fixtures look nice. They're in a good run of form, even though the fixtures have been really hard. So things can only get better with West Ham, I think. And they are a really nice price points that are going to enable the rest of the team. So yeah.
Yeah, fingers crossed. This is it. This is it, the run. This is the start of a golden era in differential picking. Well, the last week was the start of that, and it's going to continue. Let's move on to transfer and captaincy plan. So I'll go first because I've sort of alluded to what I'm sort of thinking about anyway. I've got Martinez in a 3-4-3. Martinez, Lamptey, who may be injured, Robertson, Ayling. I'm not happy with that defence at all, especially for this week. Souček, Son, Salah, Sterling. I'm really happy with all my S's in midfield though, and this is the time for Souček finally. Calvert-Lewin, Kane captain, Bamford, Kane or Son are going to be the captain. I think it's going to be Kane. I think penalties will just swing it a little bit here, just go safer. I'm really happy with Bamford playing away against Palace. Robertson, I think I might let go. And I think I might let go for Chilwell. I would like to have some Chelsea attacking cover. It sounds weird having Chilwell, but as we've spoken about, I think I'm getting him for the clean sheet potential, but I think it's that assist potential, and I think I'm hoping I would get a return there, and hopefully I'm not going to take another hit again. So I think Friday deadline's a bit earlier, so hopefully I'll be walking the dog and I'll miss it or something. And I won't.
This is your week, Joe. This is your week.
This is my week. My week.
The whole season's going to turn around.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, I was listening to a little bit of FPL Wire, which is a great podcast to listen to with Pranal and Sofa. But they were interviewing Jan, who does Captaincy article, and both Pranal and Jan are having a very similar season to me. And then picking the same sorts of players, like they're backing Sterling, and they sort of didn't pack Son and Kane early enough, and those types of things. But they were very full of optimism about this game week, so I am too. Their optimism has rubbed off on me, so that's what I'm looking at. Ben, let's have a look at your team for the benefit of those listening on the podcast. I'll say you've got Martinez and all those Chelsea West Ham players. You've got Kufau, Chilwell, Reggie from Spurs, Bowen, Sterling, Barnes, Son and Grealish, Kane, and this I like, Werner captaincy. We spoke about him on the captaincy video as well. He's a good shout. Why have you picked Werner for the captaincy this week?
I kind of switched it straight after the Spurs game. It was on Son. My plan was to captain Son for the 4 games that they had, and then I didn't think Werner played that great against Burnley. I thought a few of his touches were pretty poor. But just the way he took his goal late on, the kind of speed at which he did it, it just sort of looked like, all right, there is a player here, and maybe this is just kind of Chelsea coming together. If he can get a few more of these chances, he does put them in the back of the net. It's been a little more going into the box, a few touches of letting down. But when he's in there, then I thought the finish was great. So it looked like a really confident striker. So I'm kind of hoping that Chelsea are clicking and their creativity is kind of coming together. And Werner's going to benefit from that.
That Sheffield United weak right, Werner will play either centrally or on the left. But even when he plays centrally, he's got like a magnet or something that attracts him left. And he'll just keep moving left anyway. So either way, he's the guy who's going to be attacking on the left. And yeah, I think you're going to get returns there. Bold going against Kane, but then you won it. So those kind of moves you have to do.
It's there's still a few games to change, few days to change it, but that's I do quite like the pick at the moment.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good pick as well. So Sam, let's have a look at your team. You got a 4-4-2 with McCarthy, Alexander-Arnold, Walker-Peters, Dallas, Lamptey, Salah, who's just scored, by the way, in Europe. And by the way, Mané has just scored and Robertson has assisted. So that might have put me off slightly, my move. So you've got Salah, Son, Fernandes and Souček. His time to shine. Kane, the captain, Calvert-Lewin. That looks good. You got a couple of free transfers, is that right?
I have, yeah. And I think I have been burnt enough by Aston Villa, so I'm going to lose Martinez this week and just stick with McCarthy, who's been fantastic and getting save points even when he doesn't keep clean sheets. So I'm going to downgrade Martinez. That'll free me up 0.8 because I'm going to just go to a non-playing keeper. I'll go to the Southampton understudy, and that will work perfectly. So that extra 0.8 then now enables me to upgrade one of my defenders. I'm just slightly concerned that Lamptey and Mitchell both were flags on them. Lamptey, I mean, it's been a bit injury prone for a couple of weeks now. All right, got the goal against Spurs, but I'm just a bit worried about him. And Mitchell, I'm slightly concerned that having got injured at that precise moment in time when Patrick Van Aanholt is back, he now feels like a massive risk. So he's one I'm kind of looking at removing. But ideally, I'd like to just make one transfer if possible and then have the other one. So I've got 2 over international break. That feels like it would be a nice position to be in. My captain's been set and forget on Kane for a few weeks now, but this week it may yet move to Son. West Brom have been very, very poor down the right-hand side. Defensively, that's where they are weakest, and that is obviously the side that Sonny will be attacking from with Reguilon. So I think he's a really nice pick from Ben this week as well. I think those two will undoubtedly be in on the action this week, and I'm tempted to think that there might be a lot of Kane assists Son, and therefore maybe Son might be the one to go for this week. And he's not been trusted with my armband yet this year, so I think there's potential that I might move it, but well, let's see where we are. I think definitely a downgrade on my keeper will be in order to free up some money for the defence. But I would have ideally liked to have just kept one of those transfers, but I think I'll end up spending them both.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said there about getting 2 transfers into the international break, even though I was saying I might not need that, and the fact that Robertson's just scored, that's going to make it really tricky for my Robertson to Chilwell move, and I may not do that. I'm hoping I might just take my broadband off or something, because otherwise I'm just going to take loads of hits. I'm going to end up with all sorts in my team, and I know this will be the week Robertson scores against City, so. Yeah, no, good. I think we've all got reasonably good teams this week. Mine to a lesser extent, but I think we're going to do well. This is our week. But before we go, I just want to mention the members area. So a lot of stats we've been talking about from there, particularly some of those expected goal involvement ones. Do recommend having a look at the captaincy video we did earlier today. I know Sam, you've been doing lots of videos as well this week, so do check those out. I know you and Lee were on, was it yesterday or about to come out, your video?
We've got a Sam versus Lee out this week as well, and Andy and I are doing a members video on Thursday at lunchtime. So come and join us for that if you're an FPL Scout member.
Excellent. So yeah, lots going on. But yeah, for now, I'm going to say good luck with your game weeks, and it's a goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Good night all.